No club had ever won an AFL VFL premiership from 7th place, so that was the challenge confronting the Western Bulldogs. So it was an interesting run home in the final a block of games, Kingy. A win against the Gold Coast Suns, and that win was significant because Tom Boyd had been sent back to the reserves, comes back into that game, and obviously took what was meant to be taken in the right context, but he came back, kept his spot and had a significant role to play.
Yeah, that's right. His form at VFL level was quite really solid, I guess. Kicking goals, taking strong marks and spending a bit more time in the ruck, and I think that really helped his development when coming back into the team. As you said, took it the right way. I think learned a lot from the situation he found himself in, and then really started to click and contribute.
As the injured captain, how did you see Tom go about that disappointment from being dropped, but then the ability and the commitment to work his way back into the senior team?
I was really proud of him, and I was proud of the group, the way we were able to navigate a little hiccup in the road, because you go into a footy season knowing there'll be a few bumps along the way, and that was one for us. And to get him back and for him to play the significant role for the rest of the year was pretty important in our season.
As a coaching group, you must have felt like you were going over those bumps on a weekly basis, King. You get to round 18, it's a disappointing loss to St Kilda, but the worst thing to come out of that was significant injuries to Mitch Wallace and Jack Redpath. There were so many obstacles thrown at this group, and you just had another two coming off a disappointing loss.
Yeah, the hits kept coming for us, and obviously as Bevo, you saw how emotional he was then post-game, and for us it almost just put that result to the back burner, and we were more just worried about the welfare of a couple of really close mates in Mitch and Jack. And again, we had to deal with that as a playing group and as a coaching group, and how we could move on without ignoring those guys and making sure we still cared and loved them, but also we had to have our eyes forward on the next game, which was Geelong.
Coach looks after everybody. He's got his coaching assistants, he's got his group, he's got his staff, he's got everybody involved in a football club. But I would imagine there would be some key people that would be also watching and keeping a close eye on the coach, because he's an emotional person, and we just see significant injuries to two really important players. Who was supporting Bevo through that important phase apart from the assistant coaches? Anyone in particular?
I think that's probably been the strength of the footy club, Schwatter, is that there's support across the board. And Luke doesn't rule with an iron fist. So my sort of viewpoint was the weekly leadership group meeting, of which Luke was in, obviously, but it would be open dialogue, and particularly after that week with losing Jack and Mitch in such dramatic circumstances. We've seen so many injuries over the course of this season, but that night was a horrendous night for our footy team, and in the locker room it was felt really deeply. And we all lent on each other. We got together the morning after. Those boys had hurt themselves. We went to a pub, we had lunch and a few beers, which was very sort of retro 90s style, and we went and watched the reserves play. But I think it was an important day just to sort of recalibrate and lean on each other, but get that emotion to the surface and set ourselves up for the rest of the year.
Was that player driven? Was that driven by the coaching group?
No, that was player driven, but we had involvement from the coaches to get along, and I think it was in hindsight it was a good move.
Well, if you thought it couldn't get any worse, it did. You lose to Geelong down at Simmons Stadium. You lose two more soldiers because Libba and Jack McRae both go down. Yeah,
both really significant contributors on the night, playing on Dangerfield and Selwood. And I thought up to that point, our hunt and our aggression at the ball and the man was first class to half time. And I think anyone walking away from that game thought again, geez, you boys had a real crack, but again, you've lost a couple of key players and probably got doubters whether we could continue for the rest of the season. But yeah.
When you look back, are you surprised with how many obstacles were put in front of the group?
I kind of feel embarrassed being so close to it, and watching the video today. I know we're trying to do a TV show in a very professional manner, but I keep sort of just like grabbing my chin and just thinking I can't believe how much the club and the team endured this year with the amount of carnage we had on the field. Incredible.
Probably gives it more significance, Kingy. A couple of wins in rounds 21 and 22, but you head to Perth, you take on Fremantle. Matthew Pavlich's final game, very emotional for the great of Fremantle, and it didn't go right. Not the ideal way to end your home and away season.
No, Fremantle up for it. Obviously, Pav's last game, and they out-hunted us really right from the outset. We struggled to run and move the footy, and we just didn't play the conditions of the ground well at all. And obviously in the end it was a really disappointing loss, but coming off that game, I think we reviewed it really well. Looked at how we could defend the ground better, how we could move the ball better on that ground, and in the end knowing we're going back there in about 10 days' time to play an elimination final. So hindsight, it was probably not a bad result because we got to really dissect our game plan again, and with some key contributions and contributors coming back in the team the next week, we were able to rediscover what works for us and how we could get our game back to a level.
What was the key takeaway from the loss to Fremantle that helped you position yourself well, as Kingy said, 10 days later going back to Perth to take on the West Coast Eagles? Knockout elimination final, 7th position. No one had won a premiership from 7th position since it's been a national competition, but obviously something was taken away. The group held on too tightly and the result was very different.
Yeah, I think the ground over there is such that it is a little bit more difficult to move the ball, particularly if you lose your nerve. And I think we had just lost our nerve a little bit over there. Fremantle were able to corner us in, and I saw it as it was almost like the bookends of the Geelong sort of debacle halfway through the year, where the boys looked tired. They look really jaded. We go into another bye and we attack the final series. So timing, we didn't have much luck with the injury side of things, but I think the draw, sort of the timing of that worked out pretty well for us.
Well, the club, the group, the team, the coaches had 10 days to recalibrate, and they had to hop back on a plane and head to Domain Stadium, this time to take on the West Coast Eagles in really good form. Let's have a look at how the elimination final played out.